Usually with these videos, I'll recap the film and throw a few jokes at it here and there. With this one though, I just can't bring myself to do that. I still have a lot to say about the film, but this week I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. Don't worry, the dick and fart jokes will return next week. I just wanted to be a little bit more serious this time around. Video game movies have a bad tendency of being given to directors that look down upon the medium. In the case of Max Payne, director John Moore openly stated his dislike of video games. This would explain why one of the most engrossing, well-written video games was turned into a dull, lifeless action movie. It should have played out like a film noir with some action sequences sprinkled in, but instead it was Mark Wahlberg yelling at ghosts. On top of that, they took a brutally violent video game and made it PG-13. He insisted it would still appeal to fans of this series, but all it did was piss them off. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum is Silent Hill. The 2006 movie Silent Hill is based off the long-running video game series of the same name. While the movie incorporates elements from the first 4 games of the franchise, the plot mostly follows the original game. I'm a massive fan of the series and felt that the movie did an incredible job of capturing the essence of Silent Hill and brought the game to life in a way I didn't think was possible. Director Christoph Gans went above and beyond to make this movie as faithful as possible to the series. He did change a few things here and there, but overall this is by far the most spot-on video game to film adaptation yet, possibly ever. Although at the time I'm writing this, I've heard that the Phoenix Wright movie was amazing. However, I haven't seen that yet, but I really want to. Gans wasn't just some director looking to turn a quick buck by making a video game movie. He was a massive fan of the series and worked for years to gain the rights to the film. With game movie after game movie failing to resonate with audiences and fans, publisher Konami was very protective of the series. They had been approached before by the likes of this guy, but thankfully they declined. It wasn't until Gans sent the board of Konami a 30-minute video of himself explaining why Silent Hill meant so much to him and what he planned to do if he was given the film rights. The folks at Konami were so impressed with this that they granted him the film rights and began to work closely with him on the adaptation. Gans hired writer Roger Avery, best known for co-writing Pulp Fiction with Quentin Tarantino. Avery was a great choice for the writer because not only was he a master of creating dark and twisted fiction, but he was also a fan of the games. Both Avery and Gans preferred Silent Hill 2 over Silent Hill 1, which is why many of the creatures from Silent Hill 2 made it into the movie. However, they understood that 1 was the foundation upon which the series was built, and without the story of Alessa, there would be no series. So they set to the task of deconstructing the original game and looking at its bare assets. In the game, it revolved around Harry Mason as he searched for his missing daughter Cheryl. Gans felt the story would translate better from a maternal point of view, and would also benefit from having a more vulnerable lead. The decision was then made to switch genders, and instead of Harry Mason searching for Cheryl, it was Rose da Silva searching for her daughter Sharon. Not sure why they felt the need to change the name of Cheryl to Sharon, although in a cool little nod to the original, the name of Cheryl is spray painted on the wall of the tunnel in the beginning. The other major change was about the town. In the game, Silent Hill was a resort town that was filled with an unexplained fog. It was cold and snowing even though it was well into April. In the movie, it was an abandoned mining town. The fog was there, but the snow was actually ash. Avery was fascinated by the real-world town of Centralia, Pennsylvania. The town was abandoned in the 80s and has been on fire underground since the 60s. I've been there a few times over the years, and it is really amazing. On an abandoned stretch of highway that runs through the town, there's a few mentions of Silent Hill, and even some Resident Evil ones for that matter. The town is almost completely empty, except for a few remaining folks. The ground is black and scorched, with holes in the earth expelling smoke and noxious gases. If you ever go there, you have to be careful, because there have been cases of people falling into sinkholes. A major component of the Silent Hill games has always been composer Akira Yamaoka's amazing music, and I apologize if I'm saying his last name wrong. The games wouldn't be anywhere near as effective without his brilliantly haunting melodies. Gans understood this and incorporated music from the first 4 games of the series into the movie. Some of them had slightly different arrangements, but still kept that otherworldly sound that the composer was known for. The entire score of the film is from the games, with the exception of Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire, something that has never been done before or since. I understand that everyone has their likes and dislikes, but if you consider yourself a fan of the Silent Hill games, but say that the movie isn't faithful to the source material, I'm sorry, you're wrong. As I said earlier, they changed a few things around, but still stayed true to the source material. They changed things in the Lord of the Rings movies, the Harry Potter movies, and even the Nolan Batman movies. The bottom line is sometimes things need to be altered in order for it to make sense in this new medium, or to simply truncate things. Here's where I do something that I haven't done before, or at least I don't think I've done before. If you haven't seen the movie yet, shut this off and go watch it. I'm about to go over the main plot of both the game and the movie. If you have seen it, or you haven't seen it and just don't care, let's continue. The town of Silent Hill has over the years had ties to the occult. A group arose that would burn anyone that they considered a witch. In the 70s, there was a young girl named Alessa who was born out of wedlock to a woman named Dahlia. The children of town bullied and beat Alessa on a daily basis for being different. This was only compounded when Alessa was raped by her elementary school janitor. Dahlia's sister, Christabella, was the leader of the religious cult. She convinced Dahlia that her daughter was impure and needed to be purified. What she didn't tell her was that this was to be done by roasting her alive over hot coals. Realizing what she had done, Dahlia went to get the police to stop them. While being burned alive, the pain caused Alessa to manifest her psionic powers, which caused the chain that held her in place to snap and set the building on fire, which killed many of the cultists. Through the pain, Alessa was transformed into a superior being. Alessa was taken to a local hospital and cared for, while her rage manifested itself into the form of a doppelganger, known as Dark Alessa. The doppelganger approached her and offered her a chance to get revenge on the cult. She accepted, and the town was pulled into a purgatory dimension of Dark Alessa's creation. The fires of the hotel spiraled out of control and monsters filled the streets. Dark Alessa split Alessa's soul one more time and formed an infant out of all her remaining goodness. She took the infant to an orphanage outside of Silent Hill, where she was adopted by the De Silva family, who named her Sharon. When Sharon reached the age of 9, which was when Alessa was burned alive, she started having visions and sleepwalking. She keeps mentioning a place called Silent Hill. Rose decides to take her there against her husband's wishes. Once in the town, Sharon was separated from Rose. Dark Alessa then uses the creatures of her creation to test the strength of Rose. After Dark Alessa is sure that Rose is fit to be her mother, she uses her to infiltrate the cult's church, where she can finally exact her revenge. Look at her dancing in the blood raining down from an eviscerated Christabella. The game follows a very similar path. Rather than go over the entire thing again, I'll just point out the differences. In the game, there's no Christabella. Dahlia is both the leader of the cult and Alessa's mother. Dahlia conducted a ritual that impregnated Alessa with the god of the Silent Hill cult. Alessa resisted the ritual, and her soul was split into good and evil halves. The good half turned into the baby Cheryl, that Harry adopted. There was a character in the game that didn't make it to the movie, Dr. Kaufman. He was the doctor of the local hospital. Dahlia convinced Kaufman to hide Alessa in the basement of the hospital, while she figured out what to do. Kaufman forced the nurse Lisa to care for the girl. Trapped in the purgatory, Dahlia cast a spell to bring Cheryl back so she could rejoin with Alessa and give birth to their god. After Dr. Kaufman realizes that he's been betrayed by Dahlia, he removes the god from Alessa, and Harry fights it. After killing the deity, Alessa is reborn. Harry takes the baby and is able to escape the dimension. Further proof of just how much of the essence of the game is in the movie. Early on, when Rose and Sharon are driving into Silent Hill, the whole sequence almost mirrors the opening segment of the game. They're driving into town in a Jeep while being followed by a cop. Someone walks in front of the car and they spin out. Rose wakes up and her daughter's missing. She wanders into town searching for her, but a siren goes off and the whole town turns to black. She uses her only light source, a lighter, and now everything has this rusted industrial texture to it. She runs into some disturbing imagery, like this hospital gurney with a bloody corpse on it, and this figure crucified to a fence. From out of nowhere, these little twisted, mutilated children attack and smother her until she passes out and wakes up in a new location. The elements feel like they're taken right out of the game and imported into the movie. The unusual camera angles, the tracking shots, and things like the wheelchair and rusty fences. A few things were updated. In the game, Harry has this old radio that would start to make radio static noises whenever creatures are nearby. In the film, it's a cell phone that does this. Let's look at the main characters. Sean Bean played Christopher. On top of being a great actor, Gans hired him because he looks so similar to James Sunderland, the protagonist of Silent Hill 2. His part in the film was originally supposed to be limited to the beginning and the end. However, after early drafts of the screenplay came back with the notes, "There's no men in this," they expanded his role to a subplot. Gans begrudgingly put the subplot into the film, even though it brought the pacing down. He had hoped the producers would see how the new scenes weren't necessary, but they seemed content now that there was some men in the film. Because God forbid we have a strongly focused horror film that revolves around women. What makes this even more irritating is when the film is being nitpicked by the critics, they often cite that the film runs long and Bean's part in the film adds nothing. So, surprise surprise, a producer who was wrong and didn't listen to the director. Rhoda Mitchell plays Rose. Originally she turned down the film, but reconsidered when her most recent film tanked. This unfortunately led to her and Gans not getting along because he felt she wasn't really as interested in the role as she should be. Thankfully, none of that made it to the film because I thought she gave a stellar performance. Jodelle Ferland played the dual role of Sharon and Alessa. She gave an impressively deep performance for such a young kid, and aside from the cringe-inducing scene in the beginning of the movie where she's yelling Silent Hill, I don't fully blame her for the failure of that portion of the scene. There's no real way they could have done that well. I know the intention was to show that she was having these restless dreams and needed to get to Silent Hill, but they could have conveyed it in a much better way. In the movie, she was frequently drawing with her crayons. Why not let Rose find a stack of pictures with the Welcome to Silent Hill sign on them? Overall, it's the only part of the film I don't like. My only other gripe is the terrible poster art. It doesn't evoke any of the creepiness of the film, and it left itself wide open to be defaced like this. Although I have to admit, this is hilarious. Laurie Holden is perfect as Sybil Bennett, right down to the leather biker boots. In the movie, they split the character of Dahlia Gillespie into two characters, Dahlia and Christabella, Deborah Kara Unger as Dahlia, and Alice Kriege as Christabella. Like the game, each creature in the film is a manifestation of an emotion created by Alessa. The monsters in the film each represented an element of Alessa's psyche. The nurses were Alessa's jealousy over the nurse who took care of her in the hospital. Even though the character of fan favorite Lisa was in the first game, the nurses are based off the bubble-headed nurses from Silent Hill 2. The janitor was a representation of the guy who raped Alessa. He spreads disease to everything he touches. In Silent Hill 1, Harry finds a twisted corpse in the bathroom, but it doesn't come to life like it does in the movie. The Grey Children are the Mumblers from Silent Hill 1, and they represent her burned classmates. The armless creature is the lying figure from Silent Hill 2. The armless figure represents the anger of her being confined to a hospital bed and unable to move. This causes her to build up a caustic rage inside that she spits out at anyone nearby. The creepers represent Alessa's fear of insects. They're from both Silent Hill 1 and 2. Alessa from the film's finale was a mix from 1 and 2. She's seen in the hospital badly burned, and then in her supernatural form, which is based off the boss in Silent Hill 2. The barbed wire attacks were an homage to Urtsakadoji, Legend of the Overfiend. Red Pyramid, or Pyramid Head, is from Silent Hill 2. In Silent Hill 2, he signifies rape. In the movie, they have him give a symbolic representation of rape. In the elevator scene, he penetrates the door with his sword, and then the creepers pour in, signifying sperm. With the exception of the creepers, the monsters were all people in costumes, enhanced with computer effects. This gave them a quality of looking both real and unreal. Every one of them was a dancer because they were the only ones flexible enough to pull off the moves that Gans was looking for. The weird erratic movements of the nurses was made by filming them walking backwards, and then playing the footage backwards, which made them walk forward and made them look very unsettling. I know the movie wasn't designed to appeal to a mainstream audience. It should, however, resonate with people who enjoy intelligent fiction that doesn't spoon-feed you the entire time. This isn't a shut your brain off and watch kind of film. This is a pay attention and you'll be rewarded kind of film. The effects in the movie were amazing. Considering that they had to create 4 realities to work with was no easy task. They had to have Silent Hill from 30 years ago, Silent Hill Now, the Purgatory version, and the Hell version. Gans described the town's transformation to the Hell dimension like holding a lighter to a wax doll. The melting was a representation of Alessa playing with the town, like a cruel child burns a doll. The movie looks so good because of the many practical effects they used. The broken streets were another thing taken straight from the games, and they weren't CGI. They actually built these massive sets to give it an otherworldly look. The main exterior was a street in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. Many of the shops were either closed or being rebuilt at the time. They added facades to make the street look like it did in the game. The hotel was an actual abandoned hotel. Since it was abandoned, there were very few props used. Since the film has actors over the course of 30 years, they used makeup effects to show them from the 70s and now. The people in Silent Hill aren't dead. They're trapped there by Dark Alessa. She's been picking off the cult members over the years, but she was waiting to find a new mother before fully exacting her revenge. In an incredibly subtle way to show the strengthening of Rose's character, she had 150 versions of the same outfit. Each one was a shade darker and darker. She changed them throughout the film, so she started off with a very pure outfit at the beginning of the film, and a very, very dark version by the end. It's so subtle you don't notice it, but your subconscious does. A lot of people didn't understand the ending. Now that Alessa and Sharon have reformed into one person, she decides to leave the town with her new mother, Rose. However, since she was harmed in the real world, she decides she wants to just live with Rose in the world she created forever. Showing Christopher waiting for them was meant to represent his sadness and how he'd be waiting for them to return forever. How can you look at all of these elements and still say that this is a weak adaptation? The movie is one of the most intelligent and well-constructed films I've ever seen, so I get a little annoyed when people say it's dumb or it has no plot. Were you paying attention? This film has enough plot for 2 movies. How exactly is this not deep? I can understand if you just don't like it, but calling it dumb is insulting. The movie should be commended for its detail, strong story, and an ending that makes you think. I don't know about you, but I enjoy a movie that leaves certain things for the audience to figure out. I like piecing things together and watching a film over and over to pick up on subtleties. And anyway, what's so wrong about a movie that has an ending that's open for interpretation? Do you want to have everything tied up into a neat little bow? Here's a few other films that have open endings. Yes, I also enjoy bad movies, but I firmly understand the difference. A movie like Silent Hill is an amazing piece of cinema that should be held in higher regards. A movie like the Arthur remake, on the other hand, is a bucket of shit.